Welcome everybody. Today in this video I'm going to show you how to configure Layer 3 VPN over MPLS. Earlier today I did a speed run on how fast I could actually configure this, but I totally didn't explain the steps and what's the best way to attack configuring a Layer 3 VPN with MPLS. So I have up here 5 general steps on what you need to establish to create this Layer 3 VPN. And first thing is you got to create your IGP. Okay, this includes all the interfaces that you need on your router. So in this example, everything is configured except router 1 in my topology. So I'm only going to configure router 1 for this. Once it's up, then customer R4 should be able to ping customer R5. As of right now, you can't because R1 is blank. Once we establish our IGP, which includes loopbacks, then we have to establish our MPLS network, which is establishing Label Distribution Protocol, LDP. And I do it the simpler way. I do it with MPLS LDP auto config. What that means is whatever OSPF is running on, LDP is going to be running on. So, okay, so that's step number 2. Step number 3 is after that's built, then you have to establish your BGP neighbors. So that's where I'm going to go from R1 to R3, and then my iBGP configs, and then also all my VPN and my VPN address family. Then I establish the V Ahrefs. That includes routing to the customer, and then I'm also going to be doing the VRF for BGP at the same time. Then once that's all up and running, then I do the redistribution commands on both BGP and the IGP with the customer. All right, so let's configure this. First thing, establish our IGP. So if I do show IP interface brief, I have no interfaces, no IPs on the interfaces. So let's go ahead and configure them. Interface G0/0 IP address. If you've watched my videos, you'll know that my IP scheme is whatever router 1 is connecting to, it's going to be 1 and then that number. So the scheme between router 1 and router 2 is going to be 12. So I do 12.12.12.1. You can make up your own IP scheme when you do your labs, but this works fast for me, so that's what I do. Go ahead and do a no shut on it. Make sure you do a loopback because this is important for the label distribution protocol and OSPF, because OSPF also needs a router ID. LDP also needs OSPF's router ID and LDP's router ID to match, so make sure you create a loopback. Okay, then you establish your IGP, which in this case we're using OSPF, so just say router OSPF1, and then do the network statement of I'm doing every interface just because it's a lab and I don't need to do specific statements. And we make sure we do area 0. Once we do this, our IGP should come up, and then we can move on to step number 2. Step number 2 will be establish LDP. I'm still in OSPF's configuration, and all I do is MPLS LDP auto config. Done. MPLS is set up on router 1. We even got an LDP neighbor. All right, boom, done. Now let's establish BGP. In my previous video, I did BGP 1000. So since this is the same service provider network, we have to keep that autonomous system the same. So we say router BGP 1000. Create our neighbor statements. And we're peering to router 3. It's loopback. And he's part of the 1000 autonomous system as well. Neighbor 3.3.3.3. Update source. Loopback 1. Okay. BGP should come up. And then we start doing the VPN address family. So we'll say address family, VPN, V4, unicast, and then who we making this VPN connection to. We will say neighbor 3.3.3.3, activate. Then we will say neighbor 3.3.3.3, And we're going to send our community strings, both extended and standard. Hit enter. Boom. Step 3 is, well, half done, at least for the IPGP and VPN portion of it. Now we need to establish our V Ahrefs. Okay, go back to global config and say IP VRF and then give it a name. In my previous video, I did R4 because R1's connecting to R4. Normally, this would be your customer. This would be like customer A, customer B, customer Z, right? So R4, hit enter. And then the first thing that you really want to do is actually create your route distinguisher. If you don't do this with the next command, it kind of yells at you. But your route distinguisher just makes your VRF routes different and distinguishable between other VRFs that are taking that VPN connection to router 3. So you can make it whatever you want. In my case, I did 4:5 just because router 4 is going to router 5, so it just needs to be unique. And then I do route targets. What am I going to import? What am I going to export in this VRF? I did the both command. You don't have to, but if you both does the export and the import command. So that's why I did it. This has to match the other side, okay? Because you're going to export this number, and then you're also going to import a number. Whatever R3 has configured, you need to make sure that you import it in R1. In my previous case, we matched it, so I did 1000:1000. Okay? I'm not done yet. Now I need to establish this interface for a VRF. Okay? So interface G2/0, IP VRF forwarding R4. Give it the IP address. IP address of 14.14.14.1 with a /24. No shut it. Router EIGRP1. This is still part of the VRF process. I'm now going to create an EIGRP relationship with R4 who's running EIGRP, but I don't want it to mess up with my global routing table, so I need to make sure that this routing process is in a VRF. So you have to go into the EIGRP process and give it the address family, IPv4, and then this is where you put it in a VRF. And then you could put it in a different autonomous system. It doesn't have to be the same that you put in the global EIGRP process. I could have put 1000 or 2000 as the autonomous system number in the global config, but this right here tells specifically what the VRF is going to be part of. Okay. No auto summary, and then the network statement, just so we could have that peering relationship. Okay. One more step. I have to go into the BGP process and create a VRF address family for R4. So now let's go back into BGP. Address family for IPv4 VRF R4. And then what am I going to do in this BGP process now? I'm going to redistribute the EIGRP process 1. Bam. Let's go back into the EIGRP process. What was it? Address family, IPv4, VRF, R4, autonomous system 1. We got to redistribute the BGP routes now, because now we're establishing BGP routes. Let me do a, hold on. Before I do the whole redistribution process back into the IGP for the customer, let's make sure that R4 still can't ping without this one command. Show IP route. So it doesn't have any configuration, or it doesn't have any routes for R5 yet. But if I look at router 1, do show IP route for VRF R4. it knows about it, but it's not sharing it because I have to redistribute it back into EIGRP. I have to redistribute these BGP routes now into EIGRP so the customer can get it. Okay, so now let's do redistribute BGP 1000. You have to give it a metric because when you redistribute a protocol into EIGRP, the default metric is infinite, so it can't be used. So you have to give it a valid metric. And it could be the worst metric ever as long as you don't use the defaults. So I'll just say 10,000, 10, 255, 1, 1 for the load of the interface, and then what the MTU path is. Bam. That's it. Now if we go to R4, show up your route, we should get those routes. We just configured Layer 3 VPN with MPLS. Ping 5.5.5.5. Source loopback 1. Boom. That's it. It's good to go. So this is a very basic process on configuring MPLS with Layer 3 VPN. But if you follow these steps, practice it, and then learn the steps, you'll commit it to memory, and then it'll just muscle memory from there. Okay? So this explains my speed run. I hope you guys could practice this, and maybe you guys could beat me and get underneath 10 minutes. My ultimate goal is to do it in 5 minutes, but that's going to mean pretty much starting the time, writing in a notepad, making sure I memorize the commands, copying and pasting. That'd be pretty cool though. But anyways, I hope this was informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.